Right, you know me. Actually, that's a bad way to start, considering you probably don't know me. Fuck. Well, regardless, I'm what is known around these parts as an epic gamer, a phrase which I use with such generous finger quotes that my hand cramps up a little just thinking about it. I've been gaming for nearly 3 decades, so obviously I have some of my patented hot opinions on the matters of game design and structure. I've also dabbled in game development myself, so it's worth noting that I don't say these things from a position of complete idiocy. So, because I don't feel like recording a Let's Play today, I've instead compiled a little list of things which irk me to the point of using the word irk in casual conversation. Here they be. I originally considered talking about difficulty settings in general here, but honestly, I have no problem with games providing an easy mode for kids or casual players. Some people just want to see the story, and that's cool with me. What I hate, though, are hastily implemented, poorly balanced hard modes which seem to exist purely to encourage insecure people to ruin games for themselves. Look, I'm not saying that hard modes can't be done well in theory. I'm sure they can, and probably have. But for the most part, if you select hard mode, what you're doing is taking the finely crafted normal mode experience and then almost arbitrarily adding extra numbers to everything until it either becomes a frustrating one-shot fest or an absolute slog where defeating a regular enemy can take anything up to 2 whole minutes of health bar grinding drudgery. I've played plenty of games which I've started on hard mode and had to restart on normal mode because the gameplay is so obnoxiously slow-paced and boring. 2 of my favourite current gen RPGs, God of War and Dragon Age Inquisition, are both massively guilty of this. But it's by no means a new invention. Games have been doing this for decades, cobbling together a glorified mod for their own games specifically for the epic hardcore gamers in their audience, when they could have been focusing on adding content or polish to the original product. And speaking of adding content and polish, we need to talk about deadlines. For the love of God, can publishers, and to be fair, some developers, please stop rushing games to market before they're actually finished? I get that some overpaid market researcher has told you that November 21st is the absolute ideal day to release your video game, but if it's an unfinished, unplayable, ugly, buggy mess, then maybe you should consider waiting till after Christmas. I don't get how releasing subpar content could ever be good for your brand image. Not to sound like the decaying boomer that I am, but go back to the 90s and early 2000s and every game was released feature complete, without the lazy patch it later mentality that we see with nearly every AAA release these days. And indies are hardly innocent either. How often do you see a game come to Steam early access, only to never develop beyond its original release? And then you see people still defending it like, well, it did brick my computer, start a small fire in my living room and kill my dog, but it's early access so it has room to improve. 9 out of 10. Fucking Christ. Look, I get it. I do. Assassin's Creed clearly isn't made for me, but the appeal makes sense. It's cool to be an assassin. It's cool to parkour around a city, stalking your target like a redditor who spotted a woman for the first time. It's cool to perform a flashy takedown and sneak away like a fart in the wind. Hell, the protagonists are so cool that they have about 4 popped collars each. And I can even excuse the fact that Ubisoft shovel out a new one of these games like clockwork every year, because hey, people buy it, right? But why oh why must so many popular mainstream franchises just be Assassin's Creed again with a coat of paint? Watch Dogs is just modern Assassin's Creed. Far Cry is just shooter Assassin's Creed. Shadow of Mordor is just Tolkien Assassin's Creed. Uncharted is just cinematic Assassin's Creed. Hitman is just bold Assassin's Creed. Dishonored is just a midpoint between Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. Ghosts of Tsushima, Batman Arkham games, Sleeping Dogs, Horizon Zero Dawn, the Thief reboot. Hell, even established franchises like Metal Gear Solid and The Legend of Zelda have decided, you know what, fuck it, let's just be Assassin's Creed now. I'm so fucking sick of open world stealth action gameplay that I'm starting to miss the old days of complaining that everything was a Call of Duty ripoff. I don't think it's really necessary for me to sit here and be a Jim Sterling echo chamber. If you want to hear some in-depth takedown of microtransaction culture, then just hop over to his channel instead. But I will say this, remember when we all got up in arms about Oblivion's Horse Armor DLC? Seems almost quaint now, doesn't it? I guess this also applies at the other end of the scale, with games trying to chase the Dark Souls hype without understanding why people like Dark Souls, and just making their games obnoxiously difficult. But I feel like that at least is slightly less common than games desperately attempting to be kid-friendly while failing to grasp that kids are actually pretty good at video games. Nintendo are a prime example here, with a lot of their larger franchises, Pokemon, Kirby, Yoshi, being excessively dumbed down to the point where there is never any real risk of failure anymore. And here's the thing, we all got into these franchises as kids, right? I played Kirby's Adventure, Yoshi's Story, Pokemon Blue as a wee boy, and I got a lot more out of them because they challenged me. I would never have gone back to a game that I breezed through without any effort, and I don't think today's kids will look back nostalgically in 10 years and go, oh, remember that game I completed in an afternoon without issue and have no notable memories of? Those were the days, eh? There's no feeling of accomplishment without adversity. Stop treating kids like they're idiots. Hey, here's a question. Why does the AAA sphere care so damn much about hyper-realistic graphics? Why do they think that being able to see the dandruff flakes in a character's hair is more important than the game being fun to play? Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the work the artists do on these projects, but at the same time, I'll take strong art direction and a distinctive style over 4K textures and perfect hair simulation any day. And I don't think I'm alone in this either. PUBG looks more realistic than Fortnite. Which sold better? Rust looks more realistic than Minecraft. Which sold better? Look at the top games right now. Fall Guys, Among Us, Animal Crossing, all super stylized and super popular. And the thing is, quite often, this desperate need to make everything look super flashy actually detracts from the overall visual style. Hyper-realistic characters plummet hard into the uncanny valley if the animation isn't absolutely perfect. Excessive amounts of particles and post-processing and other such visual flair can distract from, or even cover up, the gameplay entirely. And that's not even mentioning the absurd file size bloat that high-res textures add to a game. You can fuck right off if you think I'm clearing up 120 gigabytes of hard drive space for fucking Call of Duty. And now, like a rabbit from a hat, I drag out the desperate struggling form of my final point. Obviously the indie sphere is exempt from this to a degree, although the amount of twin-stick shooters, tower defenses and Metroidvanias on Steam is downright absurd, there's always something new and interesting happening out there, somewhere. But in the mainstream, holy shit. I can't remember the last time a huge new franchise appeared that wasn't a shameless knockoff of an existing property. And most of the ones that are even remotely original crawled their way up to the mainstream out of the swarming mass of indie games. Big publishers just don't take risks anymore. Shocking, I know. But if the current crop of big names were presented with Grand Theft Auto 3 back in 2001, or Doom back in 93, or Mario back in 83, they'd turn them down. Too different, too unproven. They'd rather mindlessly trend chase because, let's face it, that's where the reliable income is. But just imagine if the estimated $50 million that goes into Call of Duty each year was cut in half, and the remaining 25 mil was split between 5 promising studios to develop big budget, unique titles. Imagine how much more choice there'd be. Imagine being able to find exciting new genres in a world where development wasn't crowdfunded or done on a shoestring budget. And this ties back into every other point I've made in this video. This is the underlying issue with the games industry right now. This is why every game is Assassin's Creed, why every game is dumbed down and poorly balanced, why every game is rushed out of the door, full of microtransactions and fighting a self-imposed arms race over the high fidelity of graphics. This is why my opinions are the best opinions. See you next time. I guess this also applies at the other end of the scale with games trying to chase the dark holes.